Alright guys, good morning or afternoon. Welcome to the very first annotation video for the school year. So, first things first, please make sure that you've written your name on your paper because I can't grade it from circles, and your class period. Let's say for this one I'm in class period 4. Okay, so the standard that we're learning this week is Sin 402, and remember we're going to practice a little bit each day. So, SIN questions are always about an experiment. So it's going to ask you techniques and things about experiments. So, let's go to the questions first. So this is number 1. These got cut off. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, number 1. In experiment 1, breeders diagnosed, so in experiment 1, that's where I'm going to look, breeders diagnosed MD by measuring each lizard's what? So, let's go to experiment 1. So the steps for this problem, right? Read the question. Go to the, highlight key terms. I'm going to abbreviate key terms as KT. Then go to the experiment it says, and then you'll match. So let's see. So for this one, in experiment 1, breeders gathered 4 populations of lizards, 50 lizards. The lizards were given the same amount of food, water, and light. Each lizard was tested for MD, placed on a high calcium diet, and retested for MD. Oh, and now my key terms in number 1 were diagnose and MD. So now I've found that. I've found my key terms in the experiment. MD was diagnosed by analyzing blood, calcium, and phosphorus levels. Now I'm going to go back to my answer choices. So which one has the closest answer to blood, calcium, and phosphorus? Heart rate? No. Average food intake? No. Bone hardness? No. Blood? It's a match. The answer is D. Alright, number 2. So read the question. In experiment 1, that's where I'm going to look. So lizards were provided with light in addition to food and water because, let's see. Now I'm going to go back to experiment 1. Breeders gathered 4 populations. The lizards were given the same amount of food, water, and light. Now, let's see. Exhibit system, despite increased calcium, swollen joints, jerky movements, this metabolic disease. So, why were they given light? It doesn't really say in this one, so let's go back to the question. What can we gather? So, we need them to have metabolic functions because MD stands for metabolic disease. So that means that I'm going to have to cross off B and D because I need the key term metabolic in there. So I'm between A and C. As a strategy hint, right? If 2 answers are the same, if 2 answer choices are the same, it's going to be between those 2. So that means it's got to be between A and C. Now, what do we know about lizards? So this one is actually asking us to know some background knowledge about reptiles. And that's one of the few times you'll have to know these about the ACT. But reptiles are actually cold-blooded, so the answer to 2 is A. If you didn't know that, you wouldn't get this question right, so don't sweat it. Now, suppose that a lizard has a blood calcium level of 2.25 and a Ca to phosphorus, so calcium to phosphorus ratio of 0.84 to 1, calcium to phosphorus, has a blood calcium level of 2.25. Based on the experiment procedure in experiment 1, does the lizard have MD? So, let's see. Blood calcium level is 2.25. So we're looking at 2.25. And the ratio is 0.84 to 1. So let's see. What percent would that be? So, in these tests, 18% right here. A blood calcium, okay, that's what I'm going to read. A blood calcium concentration below 2 or a calcium phosphorus ratio below 1 to 1. So we are that, we have that, but we don't have that because it's over 2. So let's see. Yes, because its blood calcium is above 2.0. That doesn't make sense. Yes, because its calcium to phosphorus is below 1 to 1. Yes. No, because its blood calcium level is below 2.0 per moles. Maybe. And then no, because it's below, so it's not that. So the answer to this one is actually B, because the ratio is below 1 to 1. Okay. In experiment 3, in order to arrive at non-responsive MD diagnosis for a lizard, the breeders must test the lizard at least. So, 3 experiments were performed to investigate the nature of non-responsive MD. Breeders have noticed some lizards have non-responsive MD and continue. So let's find all the times that we see non-responsive MD in this passage. That doesn't really tell us that, so we're only looking at experiment 3 now. Okay. In experiment 3, a heterozygous population was mated 3 times to produce 64 offspring. The offspring were tested for non-responsive MD using the procedure from experiment 1 6 months after hatching. So that means they were tested 2 times. Because it says the procedure in experiment 1, right? And now we'll look. And now we'll see the percent of offspring with non-responsive MD. So, experiments 1 procedure, they did a test and retest. That means in total, there were 2 tests. So for this one, we read experiment 3, the blurb, and then we had to read the procedure for experiment 1 because it went back the same time. So that was our clue, right? So I went here. Non-responsive MD using the procedure from experiment 1. And then if we look at the procedure in experiment 1, you'll see initial test, retest. So that's 2 tests. So that's how you arrive at that one. All right. What color am I not used? Okay. In experiment 1, last one of the day. In experiment 1, lizards were placed on high calcium diets for a month so that the breeders were able to. So, let's see. We need to see high calcium. That's our cue. So I'm looking here. Each lizard was placed on a high calcium diet for 1 month and retested for MD. Then, MD is typically caused by calcium deficiency and is treated by increasing a lizard's calcium intake. So, if they tested them, right, and then we found out that the high calcium didn't help, what does that show us? So, eliminate low calcium as the cause for MD in the initial test. Eliminate, well, no, because it was in the retest. So it can't be anything that says the initial test here. Right, so I can cross off A and cross off C because they were only given the calcium after the initial. So it's the retest that we care about. Okay, you can't see that. Now you can. So they did the calcium after the initial test. That means it's the retest that we care about. Okay, the last thing I'm going to need you guys to do is number your pages for your next exit ticket. So 6, 7, 8 are done. And then now we need to look at still recording. That was a little exciting. Okay, so I use like a little cart to record these things, and it just fell over. So I'm gonna hold it up. Okay, so the last little thing you need to do is number these 9, 10, 11, 12. And then, yep, and then we're good. So just remember that you number page 7 with 9, 10, 11, and 12.